Hi, folks. My name is Rosendo Pili. I didn't mean to be on stream right now, but you know what? Here I am. I'm going to go ahead and pass you over to Nathan from MLH.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the amazing Forem workshop. I'm just going to post in the Discord really quickly, bringing everyone on in here because this is going to be an amazing workshop. Forem is a really cool platform that allows you to build and host your own gathering places like dev.to, and it's a really powerful platform. And today we are joined by the amazing Christina, where she's going to be walking us through how to use Forem and a really cool workshop that'll get you started. So I'm going to, if I can, do this.
Hi.
Hello, Christina.
Hello. We'll also have my coworker Joe. He's a little late,
Okay.
but he'll be coming. He was in a different training. Joe is someone who actually set up most of the Forem self-host repo, him and our systems team. So he'll be here too to help with more technical questions and things. But I'm Christina Gorton. I am the developer advocate at Forem. I've been helping a lot with the self-host, getting our community members set up with self-host. And so that's what we'll be doing today. I'm going to wait another just minute to see if he hops on. And if not, we'll get started because I can get you all through the quick start. So, but before then, I do want to mention that if you want to do a self-host, you're going to need to either, oh, there's Joe. Let's add Joe. There we go. Hi, Joe.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you great. So this is Joe, my coworker I was mentioning. Joe, do you want to talk about yourself for a second?
Sure. Hi, I'm Joe Doss. I'm the principal systems architect here at Forem. I've been here since May of last year, and my primary responsibility is to one, build the infrastructure and automation that is for our Forem Cloud offering, and that is like our managed Forem product. And then I'm the self-host repo was born out of a line item in my roadmap where I felt that open source should be installable in a not terrible way, and so we started building the Forem self-host offering, which all you fine folks are going to be running through today. And the self-host benchmark is to really make it as installable and easily accessible for anyone to set up their own Forem. And so that's what we're going to do today.
Yeah, awesome. Like Joe mentioned, we will help you through the self-host, but we want to mention that both Joe and I have worked through with Mac OS and with Linux. We do not currently support Windows, correct, Joe, on setting
Correct.
this up. So if you want to work through this with us, you're going to have Mac OS or a Linux distribution to get through. You can listen and figure out or kind of watch and see how we do the self-host if you have Windows, but just kind of giving a heads up that we won't be debugging kind of Windows things because that's not what we've supported yet. Oh. All right. Joe, we're going to start sharing. I'm going to start with the self-host repo itself here. So let me screen share.
You want to get our teammates set up before we screen share real quick?
Oh, yeah, let's do that. I'm going to get my terminal and I'm going to share it with Joe with something called Teammate, which if you've never used before is amazing. You can just send a little link to whoever you're working with and they can start working in your terminal as well. So that's what I'm going to do real quick.
And part of the reason why we're setting this up before we screen share is that it is
Yeah.
direct access to your computer.
Yep.
So the string that you send is sensitive information. You don't really want anyone to be able to get that connection string. So,
Yep.
Because it will give them exact access as your user. So definitely be careful when using Teammate.
All right. I sent it in our Slack, Joe.
All right, cool. Let's get that going. So we're going to do two teammates. And so I run Linux and my screen sharing capabilities are less than optimal for my desktop. So Christina's we're going to do two teammates, one to her computer so I can type. And then another one from mine to her. So like if we need to do Linux, examples, we can use mine. But I imagine we'll probably be on her window the most. So
Okay.
let me get one going here for you.
Yep, go ahead. All right, folks, and we'll start sharing the screen in just 1 second. Okay, cool. All right, we're going to start just by looking at the self-host repo real quick and kind of talking. We're going to start with what's called the requirements. So I'm going to share that now. Oops, I got to add that screen. There we go. Okay, so we're in the self-host repo, and we can share a link if no one has yet into the comments. And this is really where you want to start if you want to actually self-host, and you are going to work through the different requirements that you need. You'll work through what's called the quick start, and you'll need to choose a provider. We also have tutorials that are a little bit more in depth if you're kind of newer to some of these, and those are on what's called forem.dev, and we'll link to that at some point as well. Okay, so do you want to talk a little bit at first about what the requirements are and why we need them?
Sure. All right. So Forem Self-Host is a repository that uses Ansible. Ansible is an automation framework. It's written in Python. It allows us to create what are called playbooks. And playbooks are just collections of tasks that run in order. So we have 3 different provider playbooks. We have DigitalOcean, we have AWS, and we have GCP. And what those playbooks will do is it will do everything that you need to set up a self-hosted forum on your cloud provider of choice. So, the first requirement is Ansible, and then you need to pick a cloud provider. Christina, which one are we using today?
I believe, and someone from MLH might want to chime in, that people who got the GitHub package, that they can have Google cloud provider credits. I think that's what it was. Let us know if that's wrong, and then we can go from there. But we can, okay, that's right. So we'll be doing Google cloud provider so that you all have credits already, because for any of these, you're going to need some credits or money put in to get the self-host repo up. So we'll do Google cloud provider today.
Cool. So yeah, you choose a cloud provider. Thankfully, the way the technology stack that we use is pretty flexible. So like just because we have 3 supported cloud providers right now, it doesn't mean that like you're locked into doing that. If you have the know-how and the drive, you could basically set this up anywhere that could support Fedora CoreOS, which is like the underlying Linux distribution that we use. So just to go down the requirements, so you need Ansible, you need to pick a cloud provider. The Python 3, it needs to be up and running along with pip 3. So on Mac OS, what's the default? I think it's still 2.
Yeah, I think so.
In the instructions, we're going to talk about installing Python 3 via Homebrew, and then those are the basic requirements for your workstation to drive the automation to set up everything. And then under the hood, we use systemd, which is an init system. It's a modern Linux init system. And Podman, which is a container or engine. And then we use Fedora CoreOS, which has 2 components in there. One is called Butane, and Butane is effectively a human-readable DSL for defining what a server looks like. And then we translate that into Ignition, which is machine readable. So basically it's YAML in Butane and then JSON in Ignition. And that is the on boot configuration. So when you fire up the server, it reads the Ignition configuration and it does everything that you need to set up your server, per what you have defined in Ansible.
Yep. All right. And so just to kind of give a heads up on the workshop in general, like we said, we're going to go through the requirements first. This part tends to take a little bit of the longest. At least we've noticed when we've shared with our coworkers and helped them set up the requirements. If you don't have them, they do take the longest part. And then we'll get into what's called the quick start, where we'll actually bring down the repository and we'll start adding in all the things we need for that, and then picking a cloud provider as well. So just as a heads up, if we start going over and we hit about an hour, I'm going to give everyone like a little break, like a 5-minute break, go to the bathroom, get a drink and stuff, and then we'll come back and keep going. If you have questions as we're going, please feel free to put them into the chat. Ask us to, reiterate something if you need to. And my husband's showing me a giant snake in the window right now. Thanks. Sorry. I'm in Costa Rica. These things happen a lot. He just put a giant snake up in the window to show me. Okay. So let's go ahead and start with the requirements. I'm going to share my tutorial for it that I have, and I have it with Mac OS. And then Joe's going to chime in with the way to do it with Linux. Right, Joe?
I will do my best.
Yeah. Okay. So we want the requirements, and that's where I'm going right now. Going to share this as well so people can follow along if they'd like. Oh, they keep sharing it before I even get to it. Okay, here we go. So first, you want to make sure you have Git. I'm going to assume most of you all do, since I think most of you are developers here. I'm assuming you do. If you don't, please put in the chat that you don't, and we can go through that part. But that's my assumption that most of you are going to have Git on your computer. Okay. The next thing we need is Python. And so if you don't have Python, we need to have version 3. So that's the important part. You might have Python, and you can check that in your terminal if you put in Python and then -- version. I don't know if you want to do that in the... not that one. Into the terminal that we actually have here, just so people can see it. Joe, or I can do it.
Oh, you're doing it. Sorry.
That's okay. I can do it.
I'm having a hard time. I'm catching up.
That's all right. All right. So what did I just do? I didn't do -- Python -- version. And I can make this bigger so people can see in just a moment. Okay, so mine says 2.7.16. I've also had some issues with Python on mine. I do have Python 3 on mine as well. Do you check that with Python 3 version?
Yeah, you have Python 3.
Okay.
Then you should be able to see what the version is.
There we go. All right, so I have Python 3.9.5. And going back to our actual, let me get that back up. Okay, if you do not have Python, if you just checked and you don't have Python 3, you're going to want to do a brew install if you're on Mac. So it's pretty simple with Mac. You can just do brew install Python, and then you want to check the version. You're also going to want to check that you then have pip as well. So pip 3, and you'll do -- version. If anyone needs to actually see us do this in the terminal, just let me know, and we can do that as well. Okay, so Joe, how do you do this on Linux versus like Mac?
So most modern Linux distributions are going to be shipping Python 3 at this point.
Okay.
So, I mean, you would just follow the same steps. You just type Python, and if it kicks out version 3, you're golden. Mm-hmm. If it doesn't, you might want to type in Python 3 -- version and see what you have. Fedora Linux, I believe the most current Ubuntu. Those are all on Python 3 now. So you should be okay if you're using an up-to-date modern Linux distribution.
Awesome. Butane is the one that is pretty easy now on Mac. It's the one I'm not sure with Linux, so I might have you explain that. Again, Joe explained why we have Butane and Ignition. To install Butane, all you need to do is brew install Butane. So Butane, not Butane. Hey, Squarebat, that's one of my fellows. Hey, how you doing? Okay. So yes, make sure that you install Butane as well. And if you get stuck on that at all, again, just put it in the chat if you're having any issues. So Joe, how do you do it with Linux? Is this something we want to show, like a terminal?
Yeah. So let me just pop up the terminal. Actually, could you just go to the Butane project site and
Butane.
because like on Fedora, there is a Linux package that you can install. So you do DNF install Butane, but I don't believe there's like any Ubuntu or Debian packages. So what you're probably going to be doing is they have examples of like using like a container to use Butane. Probably the easiest way would be just to grab the binary off the release pages. So under the standalone binary, go up, click the release page link, and then you're going to grab the most recent version. So scroll down, and so Butane is a Golang application. So you need to grab the binary that is used for your computer. So in most cases, if you've installed Linux on your laptop or desktop, it's probably an x86-64, which is a 64-bit architecture. So you're going to grab the Butane x86-64 unknown Linux GNU binary, and you basically will. So it's like
the first one or the second one?
No, it's further down. Butane -x86.
There we go.
Unknown. Yeah. So grab that. You download that, and I can show an example. I already have it installed on my computer. So so if you want to show make the my Linux the Linux terminal a little bit bigger.
Yep, just 1 second. I'm going to take this off a screen share for 1 second just to make sure I'm not showing his link. So give me 1 second to get that back up. Okay, not that terminal. We want this terminal. There we go. And I will share this. Just 1 second. Make it bigger so people can see it.
So right here,
I gotta bring it in. Sorry. Screen share. We want this one, and bring it. There we go.
All right. So on here, one thing that we'll do is, so I already have the package installed. Like, so I'm running Fedora Linux, which has an RPM built for Butane. So I have it installed that way, but I'll go through and like grabbing the binary and putting it in the right spot. So you know, for here, you could do like, where is Butane? In most cases, if you don't have it installed, this will be blank. It'll be like Butane : and it won't have a path. My Butane binary right now is in user bin Butane. In most cases, most Linux distributions, when they create a user, you'll have a bin directory in your home directory. So I'm in home JDOS, and if I go into bin, this is in my path. So I have a lot of other like just binaries installed on here. And so what you do is you would grab, let me just pull up the project page so I can get the URL. So Butane, go to the releases page, and then you would just simply download the, in my case, it's the x86-64 unknown Linux GNU binary, and that'll download to your downloads directory. So back to the terminal.
Okay. Back to the terminal. That one.
So there's that binary right there. So we want to move this into our local path. So my current location is home JDOS bin, and then I would just simply move this binary application from my downloads directory, and then name it as Butane. And so You can see that I moved it there. Now, when you download something, it doesn't have execution permissions on it. So right now, we only can read the file. Like my user can read and write the file, and group can read it, and then everybody can read it. So we just do chmod plus x butane. And then you'll see here, now it's showing that it is executable. And then because I have butane installed in user bin butane, I'm going to be calling butane, this copy that we just download, just by the path.
Okay.
And as you can see, I have it installed there. So if you want to install it globally, you can put it in user bin manually. You just have to use sudo permissions to do so. So you got to make sure that if you are putting it in your home directory's bin directory, that is in your terminal path. And then you also have to make sure that it is executable. So that would be how you would install Butane, how I would install Butane if I didn't have the Linux package, if I was on Fedora.
Awesome. So again, this was the Linux path. And then what I showed before, which I'll bring up again for everyone. Sorry for all the screen switching. Okay, is that you would do this with brew if you're using Mac OS. So you can just hit brew, install butane, and then you can check your version with butane -- version. Okay. All right. The next requirement that we need is pwgen, so a password generator. Do you want to explain real quick why we need that before we tell them to install it?
So there are steps. So when you create your forum, there's 4 steps where we're creating passwords, and it's just easier to be more secure as a user to just have a machine generate the password for you. So we've kind of automated that step in the examples, and just having pwgen as a command line password tool. If you flip to the Linux terminal.
Yep.
I use pwgen all the time, and you just do like pwgen. I'll wait for it to come up. Do pwgen 15, and it will just barf out like a bunch of random passwords and a bunch of random strings. And I just pick one from the list, and that's typically how I will pick my passwords, and then I store them in like a password manager. But you can automate generating of passwords with which we'll go through here in later steps.
Yep. Okay. Okay. So for this, again, we will be using it later on. So we need it installed right now so we can use it. Once again, with macOS, you can do this with brew. So you can do brew install pwgen, JEN. There we go. So for Linux, is this a lot different? Should we go through how to install it?
I mean,
Linux?
pwgen is a pretty standard package, so you use your package manager to install it. I DNF install pwgen on Fedora or like CentOS.
Okay.
Debian, I would assume is Debian or Ubuntu is probably very similar. It's apt-get pwgen.
Awesome. All right. If anyone has any questions about those requirements that we just went through setting up, please, again, put them in the chat and we can go over anything. We will be moving on to the actual quick start guide in just a second. So I'm going to wait a minute. If there's any questions, we'll answer those. And if not, then we'll move on. Oops, that's not where I wanted to go. All right. So let's go ahead and do our quick start now. In the self-host, this would be under quick start. So we just did the requirements here. That's the section we just went through. And now we're going to go through the quick start. And this involves actually cloning the repo. So everyone should take a minute to get clone. And you can get this off of the repo. Once again, what you need to do. You'll want to clone that, and then you'll want to put it in, open it up in whatever text editor you like to use. I'm going to go ahead and get my text editor open since I have it's cloned already. Just 1 second while I get that, and I'll wait for everyone to get theirs cloned down as well.
Sorry for the kid background music. It's almost lunchtime for us here in Chicago.
Yep. You'll probably hear my kids at some point as well. So we'll just warn you all that you will hear children. Apparently I get snake visits. I don't know. All right, I'm going to open my Google Cloud self-host. Okay, and I can share again. All right, I'm going to assume everyone got it cloned down and opened up into an editor. If you don't, let me know. This video will be recorded for someone who just asked. They'll be sharing it out later on. So yes, it will be recorded. You can check it out later if you need to get set up. All right, so let's go back to the quick start to see what we need to do before we actually look at the code. All right, if you have it cloned down, you have it in a text editor. Now in your terminal, you can make sure that you're in the self-host repo, whether you use the terminal in something like VS Code or you're using your terminal, just make sure you're actually in the self-host repo. And then we'll do this in mine, I guess. So we want to go, I'm going to get into my projects. Just give me a second to navigate everything. Oop. Got a lot of stuff. Sorry for the sharing screens and not sharing screens. Just give me 1 second to get my projects up. Okay. And add. All right. This is one of my first times using StreamYard where I had to actually put everything in. So it's just taking me a moment to do that. All right. Nope, that's not what I wanted. There we go. We want to make this bigger so everyone can see. You want to make sure, right now I'm just getting into my project in general. I had called it, GP self-host here. And then you want to cd into self-host. So make sure that you're in the self-host repo. All right, from there you can grab, and we do have to kind of switch stuff a lot here so we can grab all the stuff. You want to do what's called pip3, so hopefully you have pip after the requirements, and you want to install our requirements. Do you want to talk about this for a second before people do it?
Sure thing. All right, so effectively, if Christine, can you open up the requirements.txt file?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In your code editor. Yeah.
Yep. Let me find it. Requirements. Are you README? That's not what we want.
No, we use the word requirement a lot. It's actually in the list. I saw it. So just get rid of your search, and I actually saw it in the navigator. It's right at the bottom.
All right.
Go to the files. Scroll down.
There we go.
Yep. Okay. So requirements.txt is a Python thing. Basically, it's a list of the things that are required for this project to run. So at the very top, we install Ansible via pip, mostly because at the time that Ansible we were releasing the self-host repo, Ansible was in a major release version. So they just released Ansible 4.0. So we hard require that at the top. If you notice, that's the only version at the top that we're pinning to a specific version, because if it's some, basically if we didn't pin it to 4, you probably would get the older version, which most likely would work, but we try to always stick to the most current version of Ansible. So if Ansible is, moves forward in version, we're going to try to keep up with that, because that just allows us to get the latest and greatest things out of Ansible. And then basically we just have all these other requirements, Boto and Boto 3 and Boto Core. Those are the Python packages for interfacing with AWS. And then we have Google Auth. That's the Python package for interfacing with GCP. And then we have 3 other packages. The JMES path is, that's JSON manipulation, I think. I'd have to look that one up. Pretty sure that's what it is. And then NetAddr just allows us to calculate IP addresses. And then the request ones, I believe, is like a Python interface for sending and receiving requests, I think. So don't quote me on those, but those are the requirements for that are installed via pip, or in most cases pip 3.
Okay, awesome. We are going to go ahead and grab this. So I'm just grabbing it. You can grab it too from the Forem self-host repo. Mine's probably just going to say, hey, you already have this because I've done this before, but we can go ahead and put it in the terminal just to show you. Okay, so pip3 install our requirements.txt is what you want to have here. Mine's already saying already satisfied because I've gone through this on mine before, but you should be able to get yours up and added as well. All right. Next, we're going to use that PWGen that we talked about, and we're going to create an Ansible Vault password, which you'll see again in a little bit once we get into our actual, it's in the setup.yaml. Is that where it's at? Yeah. So when we get into the setup.yaml, you'll see why we needed that Ansible Vault password, but you can go ahead and create it first, again, in your terminal. So you can grab the whole thing out of the self-host repo.
So Christina, if you've set up forums, I would not okay. run this because it'll clobber your current password.
Sounds good.
Just a note on this. So this file is going to be a hidden file in your home directory called .forem self-host Ansible Vault password, and in there it literally just has a very a 24 character password, and that's used for encrypting secrets within Ansible Vault. And if you lose this password, you're going to have to redo all of your stuff. Like, well, the server will have it. The server will have it, and you would be able to read what password's in there. But the encryption key, it's going to be kind of a pain. So if most people, they're going to write this file and they're going to forget about it and it's going to be fine. But if you change computers or you do something and you lose this password, it could trip you up down the road in some cases, just an FYI. So if people really, are going to be launching a form that they're going to care about, I would probably copy the string out of this file, put it in your favorite password manager, and just so you have it.
That's a really great note. Actually, I think we should probably note that.
We should PR that there. But, hey,
we'll add that as PR later. We should
just a word of the wise. This password in this file is probably important, so you probably should keep track of it.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to talk real quick about the next few steps because we're going to be doing all of this in our text editor. So once I open that up, we won't have to keep going back and forth. So let's talk about step 5 and 6 here of what we're going to be doing. So we're going to go into our text editor in just a moment, and we're going to look for a file called example setup.yaml. It's inside the inventory folder. We're going to copy it, and we're going to create a new file from it. So I'll show you how to do that in just a second. And then we're going to go in and we're going to edit a few variables that we need to edit. These are, do you want to talk about them? You can probably explain even more what we're going to actually be editing and why.
Sure, let's do it. So Yeah, these variables. So if we think about this automation, right, it is effectively, you remember the library rubber stamps that they would open a book and they, flip the, the date on the rubber
Mhm.
stamp. Well, so this whole Ansible repo is kind of like a big rubber stamp, in my opinion. And for Christina, last I checked, her email isn't the same as mine.
Yeah.
And she has a domain name for her forum that isn't the same as mine. And, there's just things that are different between Christina and I. And what these variables do is it allows you to rubber stamp down a forum and customize a very few amount of things. And then you get a forum that's completely unique for you. And so default email is a prime example. The forum needs to know who the default owner is. And the admin email is an important aspect of that. And then obviously everyone's going to have a different domain name. ChristinaIsCool.com is probably one of the coolest forums out there. I don't think that domain exists, but it probably should. And then typically most individuals will do like a www. Some people choose to just do like, ChristinaIsCool.com. So we default to www, and then we give the server a host name. Because if you wanted to set the server up to send email down the road, a server host name is extremely important for that. So we just do that, and that defaults to host. So typically you're going to have a couple things that are set. And then the next step down is generating secrets. So we require 4 secrets to be created. One is a secret key base that's used within Rails. And I think that has to do with like how it salts things in the database and stuff like that. And then we have 2 image proxy a key and a salt for image proxy. So we use image proxy to manipulate images on the fly. So when you post an image to a post or a thread or a comment, it will go through image proxy. And in order to do that, image proxy has to have a key and a salt to authenticate, because the image proxy doesn't want to let anyone just send images into it. So you use that as kind of like an authentication method between the Rails app and image proxy. And then, of course, we store everything in Postgres. So Forem has a Postgres password that we generate. So those are stored in what is called Ansible inventory, and that's what Christina is going to show you next when she copies the inventory forum or inventory example setup.yaml to inventory forum setup.yaml.
Yep. And I am going to remove this real quick just so I can remove my actual email from mine because that's still in there. We'll put a default in for right now. So give me 1 second. Not that I don't want you all emailing me, but I kind of, we can.
Privacy is important.
Yeah. Give me 1 second. There we go. We'll just put. All right, cool. Okay. So the first thing we want to do is we want to go into the inventory here, and we have this example and then setup.yaml. And you just want to copy the whole thing. So you can, select all, command all if you're on, or command A if you're on a Mac, and select it all, copy it. And then you want to, inside of the forum folder here, you want to create a new setup.yaml file. So you'll need to create that. And once you do, you can paste everything into that file. Let me get rid of some of these so we have a little bit more room. Okay. I'll give everyone a second to do that, and then we'll talk about the variables we were just talking about needed to be changed.
You want me to talk about like Ansible inventory for a second?
Yeah, sure.
And like what they're actually looking at? I can do that once we give people a chance to copy everything over.
Yep.
All right. So I assume everybody has done the copy pasta dance here. If you want to scroll all the way up, Christina.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what we're really looking at here is an Ansible inventory. And Ansible inventories have a lot of different forms. We're using what is called their YAML inventory. And so at the top, the all key effectively is saying for every inventory target in Ansible, these are the variables to use. And so Ansible really loves to do, you basically have a variable is just a key and a value. So, at the top, you can see that we have SSH underscore key, and that is using a lookup plugin to grab an SSH key. Did we go through the SSH key setup? Was that?
Yeah, we will.
I can't remember if that's up or down in the steps.
It's down later.
It's down the steps. So, that allows you to kind of like, not only assign variables that are, every single form that you would use, that you stamp down will use the same stuff in the all vars. So it applies to every target. So, and then Christina's actually on a line that uses, kind of like a replacement. So we're rack env, that variable is actually the same variable as Forem env. So, Forem, it allows you to kind of dry up your variable usage. And then if you scroll down, so these are all the variables that are standard for every form that you would be deploying. And then we have children that live underneath the all vars. And we defined a key called forums. And then we have a host called Forem. And these are the things that are unique to Christina's forum. So you literally could have, under host, the host key, you could have Forum 1. And then you would have all the things that would be unique to Forum 1. You could have another one that's called Forum 2. And you could have everything that's unique to that. And so it allows you to kind of like, multiplex, because Ansible is really used as a configuration management tool. But you can also use it to kind of drive automation locally, which is what we're doing. So as we scroll down, you can see that we have like certain things that need to be updated. So like Forum, actually go back up, Forum domain name. She created cloud creative.club. And then she added default email. Obviously, she has her default email to fake email at email.com, which doesn't exist. And then she uses the defaults forum subdomain. So she's going with www. So that'll create her forum as www.cloud-creative-club. And then her server host name is set to host. Mm-hmm. And then as we go down, you can see, scroll back up just a little bit. Mm-hmm. So under app domain, so you see the app domain key. You can see that we're just reusing the forum subdomain name and the forum domain name. So we don't have to write that twice. We fill it in one spot, and then we get to reuse that, those variables in other spots. And then if we scroll down to line 40 on the image proxy key, you can see that we have a special prefix called vault underscore. So what we're doing there is we're saying, okay, this image proxy key points to the variable called vault underscore image proxy key. And if you go all the way down to the image proxy key.
Let's find that one.
Yeah.
There we go.
So it looks like a blob of numbers. Yep. So what you're actually looking at here is an encrypted string. We use a feature within Ansible Vault called Ansible Vault Encrypted String. And that allows us to inline the key of Vault image proxy key is set to an encrypted blob of text that really is just a string. If we scroll up a little bit, so we have this command here that Christina's going to run on her terminal that will produce a blob for you to copy into this spot. Mm-hmm. So she's going to do that right now in her terminal.
Yep. You want to copy? Make sure you copy the whole thing, just the whole string there.
Get the whole thing.
Let me get to my terminal. Okay, and then you drop it into your terminal here, and it will spit out that big blob that you saw, and then you can copy the whole thing like this, just the whole thing, and you can go back to your text editor, and you would put it where the correct variable is. So in my case, it's this right here. This is one I already generated before, but I'll show you just so that you have it, because they tend to not indent like they should. So you'll want to also indent it over twice before you save this file. So you're going to do that for each of the keys that we have here. Let's go back real quick just to make sure everyone's knows which variables up here they need to change that we just talked about. So you'll want to have a domain name. Make sure that you have some domain name that you've bought. So have a domain name, and then you're going to change out your, you're going to put your email. I just removed mine, so it's not, public for everything, but you would actually put a real email here. You can leave this at www if you'd like, and host.Ose are our defaults. You don't have to change those. If you'd wanted some other kind of subdomain with your domain, you could. Like if I wanted aws.cloudcreative.club, then I could change www to that instead. Okay, and then like Joe said, you're going to create your keys. Each one has, inside your setup.yaml file, each one has a specific string that you need to put into your terminal. You'll copy it from your terminal and put it into your setup.yaml. Then you'll go down to the next one. So right here we have vault image proxy key. You'll grab that one, do the same thing, put it in your terminal, copy it, paste it. Then we have our vault image proxy salt. You want to copy that one as well. Do the same thing for each one. So you're going to do that there's 4 of them total. So the last one is vault form Postgres password, and you'll want to paste that in, make sure it's indented correctly, and then you can save your whole file. All right, I'm going to go back real quick to our... Okay, so next will be the SSH key, just so you know.
Yeah, I couldn't remember where it landed.
Yeah, so let's give everyone a moment to do that. Anyone who's following along, it will take a minute to do that. You can also do it afterwards if you're just following this and you want to watch the stuff afterwards. That's fine too. But I do want to give you all time to do that. So let's give like 2 or 3 minutes here. And for reference, this is also in the quick start tutorial on forem.dev. It goes through everything you need to do. It shows you each one and also how to indent it as well. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to generate an SSH key. That's our step 7 here, and we need to save it to a certain file path in our own like home address here. So do you want to talk about it at all? Why? I think you mentioned already kind of why we need it, but do you want to talk about any more, Joe?
Sorry, one of my coworkers was barking at me. What was you? Sorry.
It's okay. I just mentioned we're getting to the part now where we're going to have to generate an SSH key, and then we need to save it to a certain path. Do you want to? I think you already touched on it a little bit, but if you want to touch on more of why we need it.
Yeah. So an SSH. So Ansible is driven over SSH, and we want to make sure that once you launch your Forem, that you have access to it to be able to get into it via SSH, because that's how you do a lot of administration of it. And so we want, rather, it's really hard to guess some people put their SSH key, like my SSH key is literally, in home.ssh.jdos, right? And like, it's really hard to know what SSH key to use. So we actually have you generate a new SSH key. Would you follow that link? Click on the SSH key link, and which I believe goes to like a GitHub on how to generate a SSH key. So follow those instructions to create an SSH key, and it will ask you where you want to put it. So if we go back to our instructions, we say, okay, you can either write it to, save it to your home directory.sh.forum, and then that will write out not only the private key, which will live in, home.sh.forum, that file, and then it'll write out a public key, which if we look at the Ansible inventory, if you want to flip to your code editor and scroll all the way up to the top, there at the top, we actually do a lookup. So a lookup is a special feature within Ansible that allows us to locally look for a file in a path and then kind of gobble up all that information and make that the value of SSH key. So that in itself, we want you to generate an SSH key that has a strong password on it. That's really important. And put it in the correct location. So
we do have steps for this as well in the tutorial. Like because I've created one already, I'm not going to go through it on the terminal, but we can talk through it here real quick for you all. I do want to mention that if you're going to use AWS, you have to have an RSA-based SSH key. So it is different. If you're using DigitalOcean or Google Cloud Provider, which we're going to do today, you will follow these steps. But if at some point you want to try to do AWS, you start running into errors, it's probably because you don't have an RSA-based SSH key. And again, in the tutorial that I did, I walk you through how to create one and where to put it so that you have it when you want to work with AWS. But let's talk through this real quick. So you can either follow or you can follow the GitHub tutorial to create an SSH key, or you can follow the steps below. So in your terminal, you would paste this text. This is all just coming from the GitHub tutorial as well. I just kept it in one place for people. So this part right here was from the GitHub tutorial. You would add in this to your terminal and then your email. So make sure that you replace your email with your actual email. That's going to create the SSH key. And then when you're prompted to enter a file in which to save the key, you can press enter. This is going to accept the default file location. And then we're going to copy that into our user, wherever your user is. For me, it's like CM Gorton. So there where it says you, that would be CM Gorton. And then, so yeah, we want to copy it over into that home file that is explained here, which is what we're doing with the next steps. So after it's saved, you can just use the command CP, put the actual file path that you currently have, your SSH file in, and then where you want it to go, which is the home.ssh forum. So that's how you can move it over once it's created. And then you can check if you want to make sure that actually happened. You can check with this command ls-lh and then put in your path for the forum as well. That should show you both a private key and a public key when you're done with it.
Keep your private key safe. Like that's one thing you don't want to be, one of the mistakes you could do is check that into a GitHub repository. That's kind of the keys to the castle. Don't be sharing that with anybody. When it does prompt for a password, put one on there. That's really important.
True. Yes, it does give you a prompt to add a password, pick something that is like a strong password, or create one with passwordgen, like JDOS mentioned before, and then just keep it somewhere so that you have the password for your private keys. All right, we're about to hit an hour, and I know people probably need to go through those steps. So I think we can take like a 5-minute break here. I'm going to give you all like a 5-minute break. Go get some water, go to the bathroom, whatever you need to do. And then we'll come back and keep going through. So if you actually need to go through those steps right now, you can do that as well. And I'm going to. All right, we can stop. If Jayos, if you want to go do something too, go for it.
Yeah, I'm gonna go wrestle some kids. I'll be back.
All right, we'll be right back in about 5 minutes, y'all. Hello. Make it smaller. There we go. All right. Hopefully everyone, stretched, went to the bathroom, whatever you need to do. And now we can actually get started with picking a cloud provider. So that's the next step. Let me bring up again the self-host guide for everyone, just so you know where we're at in that. Okay. So what we just went through, again, to let everyone know if they're following along later on and watching this, we have been going through the quick start guide. We cloned down the repo. We made sure we were in our actual self-host repository. We installed our requirements. So these are the steps you're going to be following. We created a password with pwgen that's going to be visible to our Ansible files. We also created a new setup.yaml and changed some of the variables that are in there, because some of them are ones that need to be specific to your forum, like your domain name, subdomain, email, and the host. And then we generated some Ansible secrets inside our terminal, copied them and put them into our setup.yaml on the appropriate lines, which you can see as you scroll down. You get a script that you need to put into your terminal. It generates the password, and then you put it with the correct secret here that you are doing. And then finally, we set up a new key with our SSH key, and we followed along either with the GitHub tutorial that they have or with the quick start guide that we have on forem.dev. So now we're on step 8, pick a cloud provider. We were told you all have credits for Google Cloud, so that's the one we're going to be doing. If you want to do one of the other ones and you need help setting it up, again, we have tutorials. You can see that we have a couple of them: setting up AWS, setting up DigitalOcean, and then the Google Cloud is the one we're going to be going through in just a minute. So you can either follow just here in the self-host if that's enough for you. So you can click on Google Cloud in the self-host. It will bring you down to where you need to be. It goes down a little bit farther, but that's okay. And then, so do you want to talk about this real quick, just kind of
Sure.
the first beginning parts?
So just like we talked about in the Ansible inventory for your forum, we have a playbook. And Christina, can you, in your code editor, bring up the GCP playbook?
Mm-hmm. Down in providers.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So we basically have playbooks. And so playbooks are, again, a collection of tasks. And then at the top, we have the name of the playbook. It has a host target. And because we're only using one target, which is your local machine, so we set it to all. Yep. And then we define we want to use a collection in Ansible, which is basically another way to kind of dry up and make a modular way of basically creates a collection is a bunch of modules that are specific for doing a bunch of tasks, to be clear. And then we have what are called playbook variables. So we have what we were looking at before in the setup.yaml, those are inventory variables. And then we have playbook variables. And Ansible has a order of or precedence of variables. So like certain variables will override other variables depending on where they're at in the setup. So we define some specific things to GCP in here. And if we go back to the GitHub repository, so there are certain things you can do to customize your experience within Google Compute. We, being from Chicago in the Midwest, we kind of default to someplace close. So US Central 1, that's down in Iowa. And then we pick a zone. So in Iowa, I believe there is 4 zones in Iowa. We're just going to go with the A zone for now. And then we set a machine type. So a machine type is the type of instance that you're going to be spinning up at Google Compute. For most people that are starting out, the E2 small will do just fine. But as your forum grows, and let's hope that everyone has some really cool ideas for some cool communities, you may need to have a bigger size forum to fit your needs. So that these variables effectively let you customize your install on Google Compute. In most cases, if you go back to your code editor.
Not that. That's not what we want.
Slash.
Okay. Code editor. There we go.
I love that GIF. Anyways, so we effectively have some defaults here, and you could easily change these defaults. If you wanted to launch your forum, let's say you know you're going to do a lot of pictures, and pictures take up space, so you would set the forum GCP disk size from 100 gigs to 200 gigs or 300 or whatever you felt was good. And then we have a couple things here like the GCP project that we're going to go over on setting up here that are customizable. So that's where you would customize how things are being, just as you customized your inventory variables that define your forum, the email address, the host name, and the secrets. Here inside GCP, inside the provider playbook, we can customize the things that are at Google. So that's a long-winded way of saying these are just more tunables.
Awesome. Okay. And this, again, also kind of breaks it down a little bit for you, too, if you want to know afterwards, and the self-host repo. So for setting up, we need to do a couple of different things for Google Cloud. Each cloud provider is a little bit different. Most of them are pretty straightforward. First of all, I will say you need to have a Google account, a Google Cloud account, so make sure you have that before. Hopefully you all did get credits. We were told you got credits, and that's great because then you can at least try this out and start with that. But yeah, make sure you have your account because you need to do a few things on the actual account in just a little bit. But first, we want to install the Google Cloud Collection, or we can install it. Do you want to explain this a little bit, why there's two different ones?
So, the ability to install the collection, you could just, if you just wanted to, you knew you were only going to use Google Cloud, using that first command, you would just do that. And that'll install all of the modules required for Ansible to do its job with this Google provider playbook. Or if you wanted to try DigitalOcean or AWS, or you were just going to try all three, you can install everything in a one shot, which is just it's a very similar pattern to the Python requirements.txt. Ansible is written in Python, so they kind of copied this pattern and said, hey, we're going to create a requirements.yaml and let Ansible Galaxy install from that. So if you open up the requirements.yaml file, it basically has a list of every single collection, and we pin one of them at a version. But otherwise, you can install the most recent versions of the. I noticed that the GCP one's not in there. Well, that's probably something we need to fix. You're gonna definitely want to run the first command because doing the second command will not do anything for you. So, all
right, awesome.
I'll add that to my list of things to fix.
No, good thing we noticed that. So
yeah,
yes,
right.
For our case, then run this one in your terminal.
No, the first one.
The first one. Sorry, run the first one in your terminal.
Yep.
Interesting enough, though, I'm pretty sure I ran this one when I did mine.
I've installed so many forums with this automation that it's just a big blur. So
I don't know.
Yeah, I would just
let's
run
go with the first one. Everyone,
run the first one, and I will make a PR to add the right information to the requirements.yaml after the stream is done.
Awesome. So you're going to do this, and do they need to still be in their self-host directory when they're doing this?
I believe you just have to be running as the user that you're running Ansible as. So you can run it anywhere in your terminal. It should be just fine.
Awesome.
But yeah.
Again, I'm not going to run this just because it's going to end up showing, but I can show you what it does look like because I've done this. So hold on, give me a second. There we go. You should be able to run. Oh, that's the provision. Maybe I didn't do it on here. Oh, I just tell you the same thing. Okay, so yeah, in your terminal, you want to go ahead and put the first one there, the Ansible Galaxy Collection, install google.cloud in your terminal. And then you want to install something called requests and Google Auth. Do you want to mention what those are?
Yeah, it's just the Python packages required to interface with the Google Compute API. So basically, the Ansible collection for Google Cloud needs certain Python packages to function, and so you just need to make sure that you have all of your ducks in a row. Otherwise, the playbook won't work. So.
Yeah. And at least I know on Mac, you can do pip3 install, and you can put the name of both of those packages, requests and Google Auth, and you'll have both of them. Do you know if it's different on Linux or what they should do?
No, it's not different. And it's also, if you did the pip install requirements .txt further up, you should already be good on this step. But I think we reiterate it to make sure that people do have the required pip packages installed before they move forward.
Makes sense. A lot of time you'll see in your terminal, if you run this again, it probably will say, hey, these are already like satisfied.
This is already done, right?
Yep. Okay. This does run you through like how to, it tells you, you need to set up. It does run you through all of the steps that we're going to be doing in a moment. Let me also share this out because I don't think I shared this one with anyone. Okay. So in our self-host repo, the next thing is create a Google Cloud Service account. So like I said, make sure you have first make sure you have a Google Cloud, and then you're going to call it Forem Self-Host. I have one already set up called Forem Self-Host in mine, so I can show you through the kind of the steps here of how I did that. Let me make this bigger so everyone can see it a little bit better. You want to make sure you go to the services accounts page first. So inside your Google Cloud Platform, you want to be in the services, service accounts page, and then you can create a project. So you can create one right here. You can see mine's already set up, but you can create a project. The name you want to give it, like we said in here, is Forem-self-host. And then you can just hit create after that. Oops, gotta go back. Okay. And then, so that's this first one right here. And then you need to give them some privileges. So this says you need to give it a commute instance admin v1 privileges. We'll go through this next step in a second, but that's the next thing you need to do. If you haven't worked with Google Cloud before, this might be a little confusing. That's why I went through and did all these steps in the tutorial. So where y'all need to go, you need to select your project first, whatever project you created. There's a couple places where you can select it. There's a drop down. Let's find it here. There's a drop down where you can select whatever project you have. And then I think that's the only way I can usually get it now that I've created it, is just this drop down. So you want to make sure that you have the correct project clicked. In this instance, Forem Self-Host. Okay, and then on your little sidebar inside of your console, you want to go to the IAM and admin, and also to roles, if you can find it down in there. So let's go here, and then you go down to roles. Okay, and this is where you can find the role that they said that you need to at least have. So back in our Forem Self-Host, it says, hey, we need to at least have compute instance admin. I'm going to copy that and paste it up here in this little search thing. And that's where it is. So you want to click to make sure that it's enabled. Not that one. All right, and that's what we just did there. So making sure that we have those. The next one is a JSON credentials file that you need. And at any point, if anyone needs us to stop or slow down, just let us know in the comments and we can. So now that you have the privileges, you have to download a JSON credentials file and place it in a certain folder. This is a part that confused me. I ended up working with one of my coworkers on because I didn't actually know how to deal with Google Cloud. So again, I show you in the tutorial how to do this. In in your project page, making sure you're still in Forem self-host, you want to go to the APIs and services that are on the side. So we can do that together. We need to find our actual, go back to our home. I find personally navigating in Google Cloud is not very easy, but that's okay.
I think they're all unique in their own way.
Yes. Yeah, I can't say that AWS is, that much easier for people either, but I guess I'm just more used to that one.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, you're gonna need to go to when you're in the APIs and services tab, you need to go to the credentials tab as well, and you want to create credentials. So going back here just to show you, since I've created these before, we probably don't want to create another. So I click the create credentials tab that I just showed you all, and then you want to hit service account from there. So make sure you hit service account. You're going to give your service a name, whatever you want to name it. I named mine self-host, and then you need to add a little bit of a description to it as well. After that, you can hit create and continue, and it goes on that you have to add a role. Originally, I thought you didn't have to put anything in here, but you do need to at least put owner, because if you try to say done, because this says optional, but if you try to put done, it says no, you have to do owner. So go ahead and put owner as your role there, and then you can click done. All of these give you the credentials that are going to then be a JSON file. So that's why you have to go through these steps to get it. Okay, then you want to go back under the credentials page, and you should have some services here, service accounts on your credentials page. You can click on your actual service. So in my case, it was Forem self-host. There we go. Then you have to also, so there's another step here to be able to get this stuff. You need to click on the key tab and add a key. So you're going to hit the keys tab, add a key, create a new key. So I can show you again in here where everything is at. You want to hit the keys tab, add a key, create a new key. Boop. Okay. When you do that, it gives you an option to have a JSON file, and that's what you want. So that's the whole thing we're going through, so that you can get that JSON file. And so make sure you click on that radio button and then hit create. This will automatically download the file onto your computer, so you should see it in your downloads. All right. And then if you saw in the Forem self-host repo, it says you need to place it into .gcp forem.json.
In your home directory. The little tilde is a shortcut to your home directory.
Yes, thank you. Your home directory .gcp/forem.json. To do that, you probably don't have a home directory .gcp, so you have to create one. You can do that with the mkdir, the mkdir command. It's big bold here in the tutorial of what you would need to put in your terminal to do that. And once you do that, you need to find what the path is for your downloaded file, and you can move it into your .gcp/forum.json with the mv command here.
And just a couple comments about the forum.json file. This is a sensitive file. It's very similar to your SSH key. If this file gets checked into a public Git repository, or if someone gets access to this file, it's like keys to your house. They'll be able to they could interface with your Google Compute account and spend money by launching, virtual machines or servers or whatever. So keep it secret, keep it safe. Don't be publishing it anywhere other than moving it into this directory and making sure that it's safe.
Yeah, definitely. And then I give you a few commands that you can do just to see if it actually got in there. If you want to, cd into the home directory .gcp and then list the files so that you can make sure that yours is actually in there. All right, now we're ready for provisioning. Let's go back to the self-host. Okay, and then JDOS, I'm gonna let you take provisioning and why and what and all that.
Sure. All right, so let's pull up the provider playbook for GCP, and we're gonna kind of walk through the playbook a little bit and what it's doing.
Okay. Provider.
All right.
There we go.
So we've already, obviously we're setting our playbook variables in this block, and then the next thing is we have roles. So roles are just a way to dry up tasks that are reusable. So we have a pre-flight role that kicks off, and it does. If you want to go dip into the pre-flight, go into the roles directory real quick.
Images. There we go.
There we go. Roles,
I'll get
and then
there.
go pre-flight, and then just go into the tasks directory.
Okay.
So there's a bunch of stuff that happens on every single forum. The first thing we want to do is we want to get the public WAN IP address. And we basically query icanhasip.com. And I think we have updated that to a different URL because that one has been unstable. So yours may not be that. And then we effectively register that as a variable that we can then consume. We set a fact on that. Scroll down. We verify that Ansible is the version we expect. We make sure that you have all of your Python 3 packages installed. And then scroll down, and then we just verify that you're in a state that you can move forward. So we'd rather blow up early if something isn't what we expect. And we do that for every single provider. So if we go back to the provider playbook.
Nope, not that one. Just went out of. Hold on. There we go.
And then we basically start the task list of, it's right down the list. We grab a bunch of facts about Fedora CoreOS, which uses a role. So every provider playbook uses the FCOS role that we've created, and we basically grab a bunch of facts and set them, and then we convert our Butane file, which I'll go through here in a sec, to an ignition file, and then we create a disk on Google Compute. So keep scrolling down. We create a firewall rule. So we only want you to be able to access SSH on this forum from your local machine, from whatever internet you're currently on. So if you're at a coffee shop, or if you're at a friend's house and you're doing it there, it will be set up so only that IP address can have access via SSH. So you'd have to go and change it. We're making an assumption that you're at your house or at some place that you work, that you're normally going to always be there. And in typical cases, like my home cable modem IP address, it rarely changes. If you can access your forum via SSH after this tutorial and you're good, and then let's say 3 months down the road you can't, it's probably because your IP address has changed. So just a note there that like you could, access via SSH is firewalled off. We only want certain people to access the server via SSH, and firewalling off SSH to a limited number of IP addresses is a pretty decent security practice. So that's what we do for you. Keep scrolling down. We, of course, allow HTTP and HTTPS from anywhere on the internet. And then scroll down. We create an IPv4 address in Google Compute. And then we create your forum instance.
Yep.
So, each one of these tasks, keep scrolling down here. So probably the biggest task is the creating of the instance. And then we kind of, after it's done and it looks all good, we output a message to your terminal saying, hey, here's all the information about your forum. Have at it. There's a lot of things that are going under the hood, but in 126 lines of YAML, we're automating the delivery of your forum on Google Compute. So that's the playbook itself. And we use Fedora CoreOS as the Linux distribution that runs your forum. And the reason why we chose Fedora CoreOS is because it provides an on-boot configuration. So the server comes up exactly the same with the variables that we've changed, pretty darn consistently. So we use what's called a template. So go and open up the templates directory right there.
Yep.
And we have the forum YAML J2. So this file is reused across every single provider. And as you can see, when you have the little squiggly brackets, that's Jinja 2, which is a Python templating language. So we're filling in this template based on the variables that are set in the inventory file, and then also from the playbook variables. And Fedora CoreOS has Butane, and I'm not going to go into all the details of this stuff, but basically it allows you to define users, storage, write files. So if we scroll down, you notice we create a bunch of directories that are required for Forum to start. Then we start creating files that are really is like the inner guts of your forum. And if we just keep scrolling, and there's a lot of work that's being done here. And this is the rubber stamp. We're taking the variables from what you've defined in your inventory with Ansible, and just keep scrolling down. And we're just doing a lot of work here.
Yeah.
Under the hood. So if you wanted to customize if you really wanted to get into like, hey, I wanted to add in some files or I wanted to do something, you could edit this template. And you could make it do the things that you wanted it to do. And if you've done it correctly, Fedora CoreOS will do the business and it will launch your forum how you want it.
Yeah.
So that was really the underlying reason that we chose this, is that it gives us a very reproducible method for launching your forum. It gives us a lot of flexibility on what provider can run it, because if you go look at the Fedora CoreOS project site, they have a lot of providers, cloud providers that support Fedora CoreOS. You can use this Butane file and translate it into an ignition file and boot it off of a home server if you wanted, and it would launch Forum exactly the same. So we didn't want you to be locked in, right? Yeah. So we could have easily said, oh, well, we're going to set this up on Heroku. We're going to set this up on a platform as a service. The ignition file really allows us to give you the freedom to host this and run this how you want. So I wanted to touch on it. There's a lot of stuff in here, but it's kind of beyond what this talk is about, but that's what this is. So
awesome. All right. And when you actually go to provision, I can show you what it will look like again in this here in your terminal. You're going to put in the answer. I need to put this in the actual like code block on here. Go back and fix that later. Well, you can just put this into your terminal now at this point. This is the point we've gotten to where this is going to actually set up your forum, just like JDOS was talking about. And you would put this into your terminal. I will note for me, I've gotten this error a couple times and a couple other people have, at least on my Mac. So if you get an error that complains about Boto Core or Boto 3, you can use this command instead, which kind of overrides the path that you were, if I understand correctly, that's what Andy was telling me.
Yep.
It like puts this path and overrides.
Yeah, the -E is for extra vars. So it allows you on the command line to override any variable on the fly. Yeah. So all the variables that we have defined in the inventory, in the setup.yaml, or even variables in the provider playbook, you could do a -E and on the fly say, oh, I want to change the, instead of US Central 1 in GCP, you could do, the key for that equals US, East 2 or whatever. Like it's a quick way for overriding variables.
I do want to say you'll want to make this GCP. I just noticed that I put AWS in here, so I'll fix that later. But make sure that's the GCP.yaml if you're going to use this other terminal if you run into any problems. Terminal command if you run into any other problems. Okay, once you do that, you will start seeing it kind of going through that playbook, exactly like JDOS said. In your terminal, you'll start seeing it going through and checking a whole bunch of things over and over and over again to a point. Oh, doesn't want to get bigger. Why don't you want to get bigger? That you'll end up with basically what was in that file. It should say, and I don't know why this one doesn't want to get bigger. Let's see if I can get it bigger. It will tell you, your IP address. It will tell you how to set it up for your, not how to, but what you need to set to DNS, which would be the next step here. So that's your end goal. That's what you should be able to see at the end. If you got that, you're good. You can move on to the next step. If you don't, you have errors, either let us know right now. We can try to help you debug, or you can always go to forem.dev, tag a post with help in self-host. So if we go make this smaller here, forem.dev, we already have a lot of help stuff. So if you're running into errors, you can check that tag first. But if you're going to create a post on there, just tag it with self-host and help so that we know that it's for the self-host and not just general like forum problem. And we can help you out as well. We don't work over the weekend. Some of us check forem.dev over the weekend. A lot of the other users who have created self-host projects check forem.dev over the weekend. So if you're like putting something on there, you're not getting a response, it's because we don't necessarily work over the weekend, although I do check it sometimes as well. Okay. So yes, after running all of that, you would go back to the quick start. So once you get that little like, yay, here's your IP address message, you want to go back to our quick start and start with number 10. So that's where we are now. So we've already run through all of the steps from 1 through 9. We just ran the Ansible playbook on our chosen cloud provider. And then now you need to point DNS to that little output that it gave you. I do give an example of, and it depends on where your domain name is. So we couldn't give examples for everything. This is just like Namecheap that I used. And I was able to create what's called an A record and then point it to my IP address. So there is an example in the tutorial, but that is a step that you all are going to have to do. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, JDOS, but.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you're, I would lean into like wherever your domain name is registered, I would lean into their support if you don't fully understand on how to create an A record at their, like if they're hosting your name servers, that's something I would reach out to them about if you can't walk through their tutorials on that. Setting an A record. So if you notice on Christina's example, she's not only set an A record for www, but she set an A record for the Apex as well. That we don't really support right now. Domain.com. I know I previously earlier in the stream, example.com is like the Apex domain, and typically we want you to have either www.example.com or community.example.com. Adding in support for redirecting from one thing to another, that isn't a thing right now. So you're going to want to add one entry, and typically it will default to www in the automation. Or if you've set community or 1, 2, 3, 4 as your subdomain, you're going to want to make sure you set the A record accordingly to the correct IP address.
Yep. DNS will take a little while once you do that.
Yep.
So before you go on to that next step, if you try to go to the next step, it's not working for you. It just know that setting up DNS takes a little while. So if you're having problems, that could be the actual problem. But once you've done that and you've set everything up, we're gonna assume everyone's probably not getting this step right now live. We're gonna run through what you would need to do next, just so you know. So once your DNS is pointed at your forum, what spit out in that little terminal of hey, this is where your IP address is, you need to restart forum traffic service. Do you want to explain why they need to start that?
Yeah.
Restart that?
So we use an open source project called Traffic. It is a proxy server that will also interface with Let's Encrypt to get you a free TLS certificate. So we do everything over HTTPS. In order for Traffic to register your certificate correctly, you have to have DNS pointed at the server. So when you restart Traffic, that initializes Traffic to read its config file, and then it will try to interface with Let's Encrypt and generate and receive the certificate for your forum. If DNS isn't pointed there, it can't do that step, and so it won't work. So if DNS isn't working, I would in most cases. I've seen DNS, for me, it's, worked in 10 minutes. For some, I've seen some cases where DNS for whatever provider they're using takes 24 hours.
24 hours, yeah.
Or more. So, just be patient. If you have access, Christine, you want to bring up a terminal real quick
Yep.
on your Mac?
Yep.
Let me find
Clear.
Type clear. Okay. So you do have dig. Okay. So most Macs will ship with the dig command. So I use dig. Let's just do forum.com. You'll notice if you just do dig forum.com, that's querying. Obviously, it's querying Christina's local router, and it's asking, "Hey, what's the A entry?" You can even shorten this up. Plus short, if I can type, short. And that barfs out an IP address. That's how you know DNS is working for forum.com. So you could check but that's for your local computer. So it's not 100%, but if I'm waiting for DNS to propagate and for it to kind of go all over the internet, if I'm getting it on my local computer, chances are your server will get it too. So it's just a quick way to check to see if your DNS is working. And like I said, for some people it's real quick, and for other people it takes a little bit of time.
Yep. Yeah, in my own experience, certain things, I think when I was trying to put DNS on Netlify for my own personal website, it took 24 hours. When I've done Namecheap, it's taken, like JDOS said, around 10 minutes, but it really is going to vary. Okay. All right, so then you're on to your, what you want to do here is that you have to SSH into your actual server, your forum server, your personal forum server that you got, and then you would run that command. So we can look again. So for me, I had to SSH into my personal community, and then once I was in there, I could run that sudo command right here, and it would restart the forum traffic service. At that point, you should be able to navigate to your particular domain. And then you'll get this little like, hey, let's start your forum journey. From there, that's when you want to go to our admin docs. Our admin docs have a lot of information. It's been put together by our community success team. It will really help you like customize your personal forum if you want to get it set up, tell you all the things you need to do, like changing logos and stuff like that. And I believe everyone at MLH will link to that as well. They have a link for where you should go for the admin docs.
One thing I'll note is like when you are on this like default page, it has a form that you need to fill out. That information that you're filling into that form is your like admin account.
Okay.
You're going to want to make sure you like, as soon as DNS is propagated and you restart traffic and you're able to get to this page, fill it out right away. Because if you leave it open, I mean, chances are if someone, it's a new forum, new domain name, someone may not know. But if someone stumbles upon that and fills it out before then, guess what? They're admin. So, you're going to want to make sure you fill that out right away, and just kind of get the first default account set up on your forum so you have control.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, that's actually everything that you need to get your forum set up. If anyone has any questions, go ahead and drop them and we'll answer any other questions, anything you want to know. And if not, then we can wrap it up from here, but we'll give everyone a minute in case you have questions. All right, then I'm going to hand it over to Nathan to wrap it up.
Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for doing this stream and this workshop. It was super informative, and hopefully a lot of people have gotten their forums set up so they can submit to the prize category that you guys are running so they can win some amazing dev swag and clothing and mugs and everything.
Beach towel. You got everything.
Beach towel, especially. So thank you so much for being here. This was an amazing workshop. For those of you who are still currently watching, if you got lost at any point in time, the recording of this is going to be up on MLH's Twitch and YouTube channel. So you can go back through, scrub through, find where you were, and then catch back up. And thank you all so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.